Hi there. We're doing two videos today. This is the second part, and we do encourage you to listen to both of them. We try to keep them probably shorter than we used to, so
That's
that you
probably
can.
a relief for you.
Yes, yeah. Now I finished the last video with the statement that a positive statement, because we're talking about the positivity of our acronym LOVE, and how that can feel so counterintuitive. And my last statement was
Yeah.
that a positive statement literally saved John's life. Now, can you please explain what that statement was and how it saved your life?
Yeah, I mean, I've told this story before elsewhere. I can't remember where. But anyway, I was working in a psychiatric hospital. I was in charge of the ward. I had been drinking very heavily for, weeks before that. And I went into the DTs in the ward. Surprise, surprise, somebody noticed this and took me off. And and I sat in the manager's office and I was in a dreadful state. I mean, I really was in a very, very bad state, physically, mentally, the whole shooting match. And the hospital manager said, I was sitting in his office and I just said to him, I'm just a hopeless case. And even through that state, I still remember his words, and his words were, well, you might be a hopeless case, but you're not a lost cause. And something about that has stuck, here I am sort of, as I say, in a dreadful state at the time, and yet all these years later, I can still remember that as if it was yesterday, it was amazing. And that got inside my head because he had sacked 2 people for drinking before me,
You never said that before.
I did.
Well, I've never heard that. Never taken it in.
No. He'd sacked 2 people before me. And what he said was, that's an approach that doesn't work.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm learning something here. I think you must have said that in one of your, personal videos.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he says, it doesn't work. He says, and he went on to say, he says, here we are, we're a health service, we're supposed to be helping people get well. He says, and here I am, my job is to sack people. He says, I'm going to try a different approach. And here I am.
Wow.
So that was an amazing, and it was an amazing sort of turnaround for him, and it was an amazing turnaround for me.
And that is, and I'm gobsmacked because I've heard this story before, but I think that is almost as powerful as what he said, that he was recognizing that just reacting to what he had in front of him and doing what was expected to regretfully say, well, I'm sorry, we've caught you out, you're fired, wasn't working. So he was going from the reaction to positivity and kind of that. I don't think there's a better case really for, I talk in the last video about how it changed how I felt about me.
Yeah.
Okay, is there other
Sorry,
things?
I thought you knew that part.
No, I
of the
didn't.
story.
No.
Okay, that's the extra layer to it.
It is an extra, and I think it's really important, Leo, because he was going through a catharsis in the same.
He was. Yeah. I came back to work, and just to finish the story, I came back to work after I had been detoxed. I had been in, I went to another psychiatric hospital where they dragged me out. Again, I've told the story. I was told, I had liver damage, brain damage, and 6 months to live if I continued to drink, So anyway, I came back to work and he called me into his office again, and he said, welcome back to work. I just got on with it. I'm not going to be watching you. And I said, well, you're a fool. You should be, And he just laughed and he let me go on with it. And, I think now, if he saw where I am today, he would be proud of himself.
Absolutely.
He'd be absolutely proud of himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody quipped from a drunk to a doctorate in a decade.
From a drunk to a doctor in a decade.
Yes, because he's a doctor of psychology.
Because I then went on to do, went back to education and ended up doing a doctorate. So, yeah.
Okay, so what you had here was a radical decision to be positive, but of course John still had to go through the detoxing and everything. So we're not saying this is a miracle. No. We're saying this is the beginning of a new and powerful way of doing things.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the thing, if we go back and we look at how people approach drunks, is the history's not been fantastic. You know, they tended to lock them up, put them in the stocks, whip them. That was the approach to it, you know, and surprise, surprise, it didn't really work, you know. We do the kind of modern equivalent today. You know, we ostracize them. We just sort of shun them. You know, and you know, we pour scorn on them. There's so many people end up in places like Skid Row with the drunks. You know, funnily enough, in other places where they treat them rather well, there tends to be more drunks, but much less severe. And many of them recover much quicker than they do. Anyway, I mean, I can understand people sort of reacting to the video on valuing the drinker. I mean, I really understand that. I get it, you know, because if somebody is hurting you, then the last thing you want to do is value them.
Yes.
You know, that's the last thing you want to do. However, we've always said about Bottled Up is it's a pragmatic program, you know. By pragmatic, I mean it's not moralistic. You know, we're not trying to create saints. We're trying to create peace in people's lives. You know, that's what we're trying to do. I mean, when we wrote the book originally, it was Bottled Up: How to Survive Living with a Problem Drinker. Yeah. That's the subtitle. Yeah. How to Survive Living with a Problem Drinker. And the program, if you take the whole thing in its entirety, that's what it's all about. If you take bits of it out of context, then yeah, I mean, if you take anything out of context, then it's going to look a wee bit odd.
And maybe we should have said, and I'm sitting there thinking maybe we should just change that sentence: value the person behind the drinker.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's the case at all. And the reason, I see there are 3 reasons why we should actually say that, you know, and one of them is about, if you don't value the drinker, if you're scorning them, I mean, you know, you've talked about it, you know, that you were a good scorner.
Oh, it's terrible at scorn, awful at scorn,
When you get incandescent with rage. I mean, my wife used to do that, you know, and before she got to the end of her sentence, I was out the door. I wasn't sitting about listening to this. You know, so in that respect, it had no really effect on me.
Other than to make you want to drink more.
Exactly, it gave me more of an excuse. In fact, there were times when I actually picked a fight because I wanted to get out for a drink. I would not stay with you, you know. Why should I not drink? You know, you a mad woman, I'm off to... And that's what I would do. It was very, very theatrical, you know. I mean, the second reason is resentment. You know, we've talked about resentment before. Resentment is, you know, comes from the, it's about re-feeling all the time. Ressentir, re-feeling, you know. So you're kind of playing this loop in your head all the time about the bad things, you know. And sometimes it's good to change the tape, you know. And the third thing is that love helps change people much more than punishment. Yeah, I mean, as I said before, they used to
all
punish.
Arenas, yeah.
And it's the same. We know it right across the board. I am a testimony of that. Yeah. My boss could have, and maybe some people said should have, sacked me. He didn't. He gave me a chance. He gave me a chance. Now, and that's the reason why we put this stuff into the program. Now, valuing the person does help the drinker, but it's about helping you. We're not here to make excuses for drinkers. We're not here as apologists for drinkers. Absolutely not. But the thing is, it helps you live in peace. Yeah. And that's really what this is all about. That's what this particular program is all about, you know. So,
what I think would be really helpful is to avoid 2 things. The first is to be really clear that when somebody is drinking, certain behaviours are part of that drink. That, you know, when somebody's drunk. And so that you can take a little bit of detachment and say, well, he's drunk, of course he's going to do A, B, C, all right, rather than, oh my God, he's drinking, look, he's doing A, and now he's doing, you know, that when someone's drunk, there's certain behaviours that happen. Now, we do, again, in this programme, say you can stop pushing buttons in that area. So we give you some tips to minimise that behaviour, because often we take it on and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you know. But the other thing is avoid disappointment. That is that before your partner gets sober, there's going to be lots and lots of times when you think he might be and he won't. And one of the worst triggers for me is disappointment, where I hoped and then I was let down. And you're better really to run with what is in your head rather than what you hope will be. Because I think that is the thing that most triggered my negative reactions. Also, the things that a drunk do make you angry. You know, that's how it is. And so again, it's absolutely right to say, I feel very angry by this behaviour that's going on. So you absolutely acknowledge the anger, but don't plunge into it. And kind of, because you can plunge into anger, you can go into here we go again. So again, bring that anger and see it for what it is, but don't let it escalate in the situation between you and him and in your head, because you know, anger just takes over in the end, doesn't it?
Anger and resentment. I mean, in AA they talk about anger and resentment being the number one killer. Obviously they can't count because there's two, anger and resentment, but so the number one and two killers, you know. And what I found when I went into AA was I was good at resentment.
Were you?
I was excellent at it, you know. If I had a talent, it was for resentment, you know, because I could build a bonfire of resentment and dance round about it, you know. I just made it bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's kind of what happens sometimes, is that's what we do. We stoke it up in our heads. We keep revisiting it, you know. Again, as I said, ressentir, the revisiting, refeeling all the time. And what we kind of need to do is put it back, you know. And it's hard to resent and be angry at somebody that you love. And that's why we talk about valuing the drinker, you know. You can't, it's very difficult to stop something, just stop, you know, in a negative way. But it's easier to stop something in a positive way by replacing it with something else. And you replace it with something else, but valuing the drinker. And that's why we put it in there. It's not about, you know, okay, I think you should just let the drinker off the leash, or let the drinker
hook.
Off the hook. That's the word I was looking for, not leash. You should let the drinker off the hook. You just forgive him. It's okay. We're not saying that. What we're saying is, give yourself a rest. You know, because otherwise it'll do your head in.
One thing I was saying to a client yesterday, and I think it's really useful, that she's going through a lot of concerns. The concerns are the word I use when the circumstance actually has a lot of anxiety around it. They're legitimate concerns, and so what I told her to do is go off and get a journal, and once a day for half an hour just sit down and write out those concerns. I also told her actually to do the justifiable concerns and the ones that are what if in different biros, because I think it's really good to differentiate between concerns for what is and concerns for what might be, and then shut the book and put it away. And allow herself half an hour a day to write about her emotions, and you know, it could be anger, it could be pain, it could be all of that. So you express it, so it's real, but then you shut the book and you put it away. So you give yourself some time each day to look at your emotions and express them, but actually then put them away. And then if they come up, you can say to yourself, I am going to tackle these emotions. I'm going to look at how I feel, but I'm not going to do it all through the day. I'm going to take a time to do it. So you're trying to be real, but you're not letting it spill over into everything, you know. And sometimes you'll examine yourself in that time and find some really interesting things. So again, it's a little bit of detachment, so that you can stand back and make better decisions, and you can see more clearly what's happening in you and what's around you.
Anyway, the only thing we want to say now is that there are lots of things in the programme which, you know, if you take them out of context, then they look a wee bit odd, you know. In fact, they look very counterintuitive indeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you have to take it as a whole,
you
know. And as a whole, it's a pragmatic programme. It's about what works rather than what should be, you know. And we can get really into the what should be and what's fair and what's the... You can do that to your hearts, you know, till the cows come home. It's about what works.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to tell you. And we know what works because we've done what doesn't work so often, you know.
No, absolutely. It's not fair in this situation. It kind of never will be.
Yeah, and it's not theory.
But please, please, we love it that you talk. We don't mind at all when you react. Actually, it gives us some idea of where we need to kind of see and explain and maybe respond more deeply. That's absolutely fine. As therapists, you know, that's part of what we do. So please keep talking to us. We love it. Talk to each other. And thank you so much for listening to us today. Bye-bye.